You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning live on Fox Local and on YouTube. But we've got a lot to talk about today, so I want to go ahead and jump right in here. First, give you a live look at the floor of the U.S. Senate. It is 11 o'clock, and that's about the time that we expect senators soon to have another vote on potentially ending the government shutdown. The votes on the kind of dueling continuing resolutions, those funding bills. It doesn't seem like anything has really changed, but we will see what happens. We'll keep an eye on the Senate floor. That's Senator Dick Durbin, a Democrat from Illinois, who is speaking on the floor right now. So we will monitor that situation and bring you news, and probably dip in as well to some of those proceedings coming up in just a little bit. We are also later today going to talk about Hope, Florida. That's around 1 o'clock. We've got an interview with reporters from the Tampa Bay Times and the Miami Herald that have really been on top of this investigation into the Hope, Florida case. The grand jury convening this week in Leon County. And we will speak with a couple of reporters about what they are learning about that process and some of the witnesses that they believe who are testifying in front of that grand jury in Tallahassee. In 11:40, so about 40 minutes from now, we're going to look ahead to the holiday season and talk about some upcoming holiday events and attractions at theme parks and other attractions here in the Central Florida area, so you want to stay tuned for that. We're also going to be looking into some red flags on Facebook Marketplace, specifically if you're looking to buy some big ticket items, some larger purchases on there. There's some reasons why you might not want to do that and some things you want to watch out for. We're going to talk with the BBB about that coming up in just a little bit. But we begin today with this battle between the Attorney General and one of our state attorneys continuing to escalate. This came after yesterday. The Orange Osceola State Attorney Monique Worrell sent a scathing letter to the Attorney General James Uthmeier, accusing him of undermining prosecutorial independence, distorting the truth, and weaponizing misinformation to justify political retaliation. Those are her words, Monique Worrell's words, in that letter to the Attorney General. And this is just the latest in an ongoing back and forth between that state attorney and state leaders, particularly the Attorney General and the governor. So where do things go from here, and what do we make of all this as well? I want to bring in UCF Political Science Professor Dr. Aubrey Jewett, who joins us live now via Zoom. Professor, we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
It's great to be on with you, Garrett.
First, just give me your, I know you have looked at this letter. What do you make of this kind of latest development in this ongoing back and forth?
Well, I think it is Monique Worrell's attempt to be much more proactive. And instead of just sort of sitting back and taking the political hits and the accusations, she's trying to get out in front of this, at least to some degree, and make the case that these are political attacks, they're unfounded attacks, and that she doesn't deserve them, and that it not only perhaps is trying to set the stage to once again suspend her or have the governor suspend her, but also that it hurts the Florida community and hurts the ability of her to do her job, and then reduces confidence in the justice system as well. So I think broadly, though, she's just trying to be more proactive and get out in front of this and lay out some of the specific things that she thinks is happening rather than just being on the receiving end of attacks from the governor, and particularly the state attorney general, Uthmeier.
Because we have seen quite a bit of that. The attorney general, really kind of being a bulldog in this and going on the attack a lot in several ways. Recently, pointing out several different specific cases that they believe her office is handling wrongly. And in that the letter, I thought it was interesting to see Monique Worrell say, essentially, I know what you're up to here, and this is some of the language you're using is some of what we heard in the lead up to her initial suspension from office back in 2023.
Yeah, indeed. I thought it was interesting some of the very specific things that she went into on some of these charges that the attorney general had made, and basically defending herself and her office and her employees for the decisions that they had made. And from her perspective, they're following the law. So, I do think that was interesting that she was trying to say, look, you don't really know, and you didn't talk about the details and the applicable law here. That's what we're trying to follow. And then, to your second point, broadly, this definitely has some echoes of what happened during her first term when the governor did suspend her and also another state's attorney from over in Hillsborough, Andrew Warren. And of course, at that time, they were accused, the governor was accused by critics, including both those state attorneys, of doing that for political reasons, not for reasons that were found under the Constitution, like misfeasance, malfeasance, drunkenness, and not performing your duties, these kinds of things. And so, the echoes of that move forward now. I mean, in the Tampa case, the governor eventually got what he wanted because Andrew Warren was not reelected. But here, the people of Orange and Osceola, the voters, they did pick Monique Worrell to serve again, despite the governor removing her the first time. And so there's sort of been a shadow over her this entire time since she's been reelected that will the governor try to suspend her again? And so I know this letter reflects that, right? I mean, she is well aware that that's a possibility again.
You certainly don't expect an attorney general and all of the state attorneys to always see eye to eye on everything. There are certainly different philosophies about some things, but at the same time, this is interesting to see because essentially they're on the same team, representing the state of Florida when it comes to prosecutions. Is this unusual to kind of see this from an attorney general taking this tack?
Certainly unusual. From my perspective, I moved to Florida almost 40 years ago, back in 1986, as a young person, and got residency after a year, and then started, going to college and university. So my 40 years here and my 30 years studying Florida politics and teaching about it, I don't ever remember such sort of an ugly back and forth that has, and not just one or two things, but has gone on and on between the state attorney and a particular between the attorney general and any particular state attorney. So it's definitely different than anything I can remember historically. Not that an attorney general and a state attorney never disagreed on anything, but it's just the almost constant attacks and constant, attempts to undermine her and set the stage that politically the governor would have reasons to remove her again. Well, and in fact, the removal of the two state attorneys last time, in the previous term, both Monique Worrell and Andrew Warren, that was unheard of for the reasons that the governor gave, right? I mean, we've sometimes had a state attorney maybe be removed because they were indicted for a crime, or something fairly significant. But we never had one, let alone two, removed in the same term for what seemed to be largely policy disputes about how to do the job.
The letter from Monique Worrell points out, she says, I am independently elected. You mentioned how she was reelected to this position after previously being removed from office. She also talks about the attorney general not holding supervisory authority over the state attorney. So why do you think we are seeing Attorney General Uthmeier wade into this battle and be so upfront and vocal about this issue?
Well, it's always difficult to know what people's true motivations are, and particularly for politicians. I always tell my students, sometimes it's difficult to know what their true motivations are. But from the way I see it, and I think what a lot of political observers see, they would say there's probably two primary motivations. Some is a genuine concern about the approach that a more progressive state attorney would take in doing their job, right? Uthmeier is a conservative, very traditional, as is Governor DeSantis. And so, I do think that is part of it. It's just a sincere belief that there is a better way to do this. And it's like taking a harder line and more conservative line on all these issues. But the second motivation almost certainly is political. Attorney General Uthmeier has almost certainly been attacking her over and over again publicly to try to lay out a public record that the governor could use to suspend her, and also maybe to try to influence public opinion so that if the governor did suspend her, maybe this time there wouldn't be quite such the backlash that there was last time.
Yeah, but what politically, how do you see this playing out politically, from that perspective?
Well, yeah, your guess is as good as mine, right? I mean, on the one hand, if you'd asked me before 4 or 5 years ago whether a state attorney would be suspended by the governor for these kinds of reasons, I would have said, well, no, I'm not aware of it ever happening before, so I don't think it would happen this time, right? Because they are locally elected, and particularly in this case, not only was she locally elected, but after the governor removed her, the local community voted for her again and said, basically doubled down and said, this is the person that we want to be our state attorney. But having said all that, Governor DeSantis has been very in, I won't say the law, but he's certainly broken some of the norms of Florida politics, sort of the long-standing expectations of how things run in the state. And so he's not been shy about breaking the norms and sort of pushing the envelope of the law. And so bottom line is, if this was like sports book, I'd say 50-50 that she remains in office for her full term, but also 50-50 that she might get removed once again by Governor DeSantis.
And you mentioned some of the backlash before. Has this issue changed politically and the perception of it now that we have such a big focus on crime and soft on crime policies across the country that the president loves to highlight, that we hear this is just such a big topic of conversation? If the governor were to remove Monique Worrell a second time here, do you think we would see a backlash, or do you think that perceptions of this issue have changed to where we might not?
No, I still think you'd see a backlash, and it of course depends on who it's coming from, right? I mean,
Yeah.
in some ways, it's going to be pretty standard partisan political polarization. Republicans, Trump supporters, the MAGA movement, Governor DeSantis supporters, etc., will almost certainly, if he removes her, say that it was for cause and it was for a good reason, that she's not doing her job and that we need to crack down on crime and get tougher. But certainly almost all Democrats and progressives are going to say just the opposite, that this is totally political, that this is a locally elected office, and this would be the second time that Governor DeSantis has defied the will of the voters. And once again, he's not letting the local people and local democracy work. Instead, they would accuse him of being an authoritarian and removing her for political disagreements. So I don't know that I don't if he does remove her, I don't expect it will be quiet. I don't expect most people will just accept it. There will be some harsh arguments about it afterwards.
Well, in that letter that the state attorney Worrell sent, she's basically calling on the attorney general to stop, stop some of his actions and what he's saying. But it certainly doesn't show any signs of this controversy ending anytime soon, I would say.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with you there. I mean, she basically, again, I think she's trying to be more proactive by writing her own letter and sort of setting the narrative as she sees it, rather than just sort of like taking these verbal hits from the governor and the attorney general. And I don't see, though, that the governor or the attorney general are going to necessarily stop their criticisms or back off from criticizing her, no matter what she says. I mean, maybe they will, but I doubt it. Right? Yeah, this is a battle that seems like it will continue either until Governor DeSantis term limits out, or until he once again removes her. Other than that, I mean, this verbal sparring at least is going to go on, I think, until one of those two things happens.
And last thing here, I appreciate you being generous with your time. I just had one more question that kind of popped into my head.
Okay.
We're talking about the kind of political implications of this and that kind of thing. Do you think this is something that the Attorney General and potentially others in the Republican Party see as a mobilizing issue, a winning issue, and that's a reason that we see them continue to kind of come back to this?
Yes, and the brief answer is yes. The longer answer would be absolutely. And when I was talking about motivations earlier, certainly the political motivation, not just to set the stage for Governor DeSantis to perhaps suspend her again, but the political motivation is right now, sort of ironically, James Uthmeier is not an elected attorney general. He has been appointed by Governor DeSantis, whereas Monique Worrell actually is elected. But the attorney general does need to run for election, right? He's only temporarily the appointee. And so fall of 26, he is running. He's thrown his hat in the ring. He's actually gotten President Trump's endorsement. So some of the things that James Uthmeier is doing now are definitely with an eye towards his election into the position so that he can have a full 4-year term. And attacking a progressive prosecutor for not doing their job, like Monique Worrell, and trying to, intimate that she is too soft on crime and these kinds of things, that's all to the good for his base of voters and will help him potentially get elected. The one wild card with him, and I saw that you're covering this story as well, is that grand jury investigation on Hope, Florida, because that also is sort of hanging over his head right now. So we'll see what happens there.
That's a good point. A lot of factors, a lot to watch here, and certainly a lot to talk about moving forward. UCF Political Science Professor Dr. Aubrey Jewett, I really appreciate your time. Good talking with you this morning, and thanks for joining us here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Yes, thanks for having me on, Garrett.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, what a beautiful day. Already off to a good start here.
Spectacular. And it's teeing us up to an epic weekend. We've got Biketoberfest in Daytona, so many outdoor events. I mean, I hate to sound like go team, but I mean, this really is a moment where the Chamber of Commerce is going to be taking notes and say, you know what, I like this Brooks Garner. You gave him some good weather. I wish I could take credit, right? Let's get right to it. So yesterday we had some showers around, making their way all the way into Seminole County. Got about 1/10 of an inch of rain in parts of Oviedo and Chillicothe yesterday, for instance. But most of the rain today is going to be in southern Brevard County. The flow is still from the northeast. It's still associated with a push of some cooler, drier air that'll set us up for this beautiful weekend, coming at the cost of heavy clouds and a couple of showers. But most of the action today will stay in Brevard County. So our chance for rain is about 10%. There may be a brief sprinkle or a light shower, but nothing to worry about. And temperatures have warmed up already into the middle 70s. But we're not going to see temps getting much above about 83 or 84 today. Here's a look at future clouds and radar using our exclusive Fox weather model. And this is cool. This is something that only the Fox stations get to use. And so it gives us a little inside scoop into some of the best computer modeling available in the world of meteorology. And it confirms indeed that Brevard County will be the most likely spot to catch a couple of those hit or miss showers, but otherwise just a delightful day and a breezy one with the winds gusting up to 15 to 20 miles per hour, just making it feel that much more airy and lofty outside. Well, speaking of airy and lofty, maybe a little bit too much air and too much loft out west, a big low pressure system providing a lot of snow. And I want to show you this because not only is it providing some of the first significant snows of the season out west, upwards of 1 foot to 2 feet of snow at the higher elevations, but it's going to provide storm energy to tee up a severe weather outbreak this weekend in the Midwest, ultimately bringing us a chance for rain early next week. But yeah, here we are. It's that time of the year. Snow, my goodness. And here's Alpine, Wyoming. That's one of the gateway towns to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and it's beautiful. This is a live view. You can see the aspen trees yellow against the black pines, and just beautiful shot there. Once you get above about 11,000 feet, you get into the snow. So they've got some snow on the way. And this upper level system, you can see the swirl with those yellows marches eastward, where it results in a severe weather threat on Saturday, centered around Arkansas, where there could be tornadoes, and a lot of them. And this is also going to mark the beginning of what's called the fall tornado season. There's 2 tornado seasons. This is the second one. It's usually briefer, not as widespread, but it can happen when the Gulf moisture and the heat in the south remains, while you start getting these systems crashing down from the Intermountain West. So that's happening on Saturday. And then by the time it gets here, it's going to outrun the rain and basically die on the vine. So we're not going to have many impacts from that. But on Sunday, we're going to be looking at a lot of rain. This is future radar for Sunday morning. Look at all that rain from Louisiana into Memphis and Nashville. This will be pushing east, and it's going to look kind of intimidating, but by the time it gets here, as I mentioned, it kind of dies out. We might get a couple of showers Sunday night into Monday, especially over in Tampa. Monday itself, kind of unsettled as the front moves through, but as far as thunderstorms go, doesn't really look to be a threat at this time. And in fact, the chance for rain will be fairly light, but this will serve as a reinforcing shot of more cool, dry air. And when I say cool, it's not going to be like sweater weather all day, just cooler than otherwise. All right, the tropics are also cool for the next 7 days. No tropical activity expected. However, once we get into the week before Halloween, lots of things change. The Climate Prediction Center, which is a division of the National Weather Service, is forecasting a pretty good chance for development, a greater than 40% chance, which in the language of the National Weather Service is actually a pretty certain shot that we're going to see some action somewhere in the Caribbean. Big question is, where does it happen? When does it happen? How intense will it become, and where does it go? Those are kind of the key questions in tracking tropical systems, and they're all up for debate because no one knows. The storm doesn't exist yet. It hasn't formed yet. But one of the more reliable computer models, the European model, which is a representation not just of this model, but also a lot of other global models, do spin up a system in the Western Caribbean in the week preceding Halloween. And because the water temperatures are so warm, with upper 80s for water temperatures and what is a truly untapped ocean basin, we've not yet had a storm in the Caribbean or the Gulf. If something was to form, it could become a major hurricane, a big hurricane, really. Like it could be a really big one, like a Cat 5, if this was to happen. Where does it go? Well, climatologically, this time of year, a lot of activity that forms in this region will work westward toward Honduras, Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico, the Cayman Islands, Jamaica, Haiti to the east, and oftentimes get pulled out to sea. But for it to hit us, it would have to, a lot of things would have to line up like perfectly. So it's statistically unlikely, but we're going to watch it if something forms toward Halloween for impacts somewhere in this part of the world. All right, let's talk 7-day forecast. So we're going to go from breezy and partly cloudy today to mostly amazing this weekend. Look at that, 82 on Saturday, 87 on Sunday. Just that chance for a little bit of rain on Monday. So Garrett, this really is going to be one of the top 10 forecasts. I think we've all been waiting about, what, 5 or 6 months for this weather to finally return.
Right, exactly. You talk Chamber of Commerce weather. I mean, this is what we kind of grind through the summer waiting for some of this weather.
So I want to show you my QR code where you can send gratuities and tips. I accept them all. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. My tip is a high five when you see me at the grocery store.
Yeah, there we go. All right, high five right there. Storm Team, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
My pleasure as always. Thank you, Garrett.
And to give you a live look right now at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock Hotel camera, Biketoberfest kicking off this weekend. It's the 33rd annual Biketoberfest in Daytona Beach and Volusia County. That also means you can expect to see more law enforcement out and about. Fox 35's Marley Capper has more on how folks are getting ready.
It is super windy out here, but we have heard the bikes, we've seen them, people have been driving by and honking and waving to us. I'm going to step outside of the frame here. They're actually doing a little photo shoot right now. It just looks like one or two bikers here that has their bike in front of the Daytona Beach, world's most famous beach sign. So people are revving up and they're getting ready. Actually at the light too, about to turn over by us, we can see some bikers as well. And so they're out here in full force. It's obviously early morning, so people are just either rolling in or they're sleeping from getting excited to be out here. But yes, this celebration really does center around Daytona Beach, although bikers can be seen heavily in the Ormond Beach area as well. We were there this morning and we had lots of streets that had tons of different traffic cones and tents and all sorts of things lined up. There they go. You might be able to hear them this morning. They are pretty loud out here, but it's nice to hear. But we talked to a biker who actually is from Ohio, and he comes twice a year. He says he never misses it. He got married on the beach yesterday because he says he just loves this community so much.
You can meet lawyers and doctors on a bike, or you can meet the low-class people who barely got money, but they'll still travel 1,000 miles to be here. It's just the bikes, it's the music, it's just the whole atmosphere of Harleys and bikes and people.
The Volusia County Sheriff's Office wants bikers to know to keep in mind that the road and traffic conditions are going to change from the last time that they were in town. They're different this year, so to be on the lookout. Deputies also will not hesitate to hold rule breakers accountable. It's a direct response to the shooting between rival motorcycle gangs during Bike Week earlier this year, which led to the arrest of a dozen of Mongols. Now, another group here is going to be adding some positive spirit to the weekend. They're going to be giving away a free bike to a veteran tomorrow morning, so that will be super exciting and just a really good way to kick off the weekend.
It's going to be a big weekend and a nice weather weekend. Not much more you can ask for in that department. We're going to take a quick break here on Fox 35 News Plus, and as we do so, going to give you this a live look again at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock Hotel camera. We'll be right back with more Fox 35 News Plus after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Wymer here, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. I want to give you a live look right now at the floor of the U.S. Senate, where a 10th test vote going on right now to reopen the government as the debate continues on what is day 16 of this ongoing government shutdown. We heard just a little bit ago from House Speaker Mike Johnson, who spoke with some other members of the Republican leadership. They've been holding a news conference just about every day, I think, that this government shutdown has been going on. So we'll hear from them coming up in just a little bit. We also expect at some point, I would think, to hear from the Senate Republican leadership and probably Senate and House Democrats as well. I know Hakeem Jeffries, the House Minority Leader, he's been speaking, holding a news conference most of these days. We've heard from some of the Senate leaders as well. I know Chuck Schumer held a news conference yesterday. So we will keep you up to date on what is happening with this and continuing to monitor these developments on the floor of the U.S. Senate. Grief counselors are out at several Seminole County schools this week after 3 students died by suicide just in the past week alone. Fox 35's Amanda Ruiz has more on what we know from Seminole County schools.
Grief counselors will be available at 3 high schools. That's Lyman, Hagerty, and Winter Springs schools. And they'll be available today and in the next coming days. The district sent out this email to parents saying it wants to make sure every student knows that they are never alone. They say each campus has trained mental health professionals who are there to help. The district is encouraging parents to have open conversations with their students about how they're feeling and what they might need. They also want parents to remind students the resources available to them. We spoke to a mental health expert who says now is the time to be having those uncomfortable, life-saving conversations with your children.
Normalizing having these conversations, and don't judge. Like, stay calm and listen. That is the most important thing that we can do if we notice a change in our teens or our kids, is to stay calm and to listen. We can validate, I hear you, you're not alone, or comments that we can make to reassure them and get help.
And in addition to those on-campus resources, you can also text or call the number 988 24 hours a day for confidential help. Reporting in Winter Springs, Amanda Ruiz, Fox 35 News.
Important subjects, very important conversations to have. And one of the conversations that you might have to have is how to talk with your kids about depression. And Natasha DiArcangelo is the Chief Clinical Officer of LB Health. She was on Good Day Orlando this morning to talk about this. And she sat down with Danielle to talk about how to talk with your kids about this subject.
This has got to be so hard for these kids who are so young and who may have never experienced death, right?
Absolutely, yeah. One of the things that we know about teenagers and developmental abilities is their prefrontal cortex is not fully formed yet. And as any parent of a teenager can tell you, they tend to feel their emotions very it almost seems over-exaggerated, and that's because they don't yet have those coping skills to be able to manage those big emotions. It's really important as a result that parents are checking in with their children frequently, asking really in-depth, how are you really doing? And letting them know that it's okay if they are struggling.
How do parents then start to have that conversation, especially if, when you look at kind of maybe our generation who really didn't delve into our own emotions, our parents didn't, right? And so how can we then encourage parents to tap into themselves so that they can then tap into their children's emotions?
Great question. I think the first thing we have to do is get past our own discomfort. I think that for many parents, you know, as a clinician, many parents will hesitate to open up that door. And so the best thing you can do is work through your own discomfort and say something like, I heard about this on the news, and I'm sure you're probably thinking about it. Maybe you knew one of the children, and let's have an open, honest conversation. If they see that you're willing to step past your discomfort, it makes it a little bit easier for them to open up and share things that they may be going through as well.
And can we talk about therapy? Because
yes,
I think that's
absolutely.
actually something that is very, very important with regards to sometimes You can talk to your parents, but it is not the same as talking to somebody outside of your family about what you may be feeling, because you may be willing to open up more.
100%. So I'm a licensed mental health counselor, and I talk pretty often about how important therapy is. If you have a child or a teenager that's coming to you and saying, I think I want to talk to somebody, please follow through on that. There are many resources available. And I would also, again, open up the conversation. Feels like it's been a really tough week. The news has been very heavy. What do you think about going and talking to someone? How would you feel about setting up an appointment with a therapist? If you normalize it and kind of make it just part of everyday conversation, again, it's going to help your teenager feel more comfortable and more okay with potentially pursuing that as an option. The other thing I want to make clear is sometimes the first therapist you meet with may not feel like the best fit, and oftentimes we'll feel like we did something wrong. And that's not true. I make the analogy to, at some point you've seen a doctor you didn't really like and would probably not go back to. The same is true for therapists. We all do things differently. We all have different approaches. So if the first one just didn't really feel like you could be comfortable with them, it's okay to meet with somebody else until you find somebody that you feel like you can trust and open up to.
And finally, what happens if you don't do any of those things? If you don't seek therapy, if you keep everything bottled in and you just kind of walk around as if everything is okay? I told you about a death in my high school in which went to the funeral, but nobody ever talked about what happened to him. I still can see his smile today. I can still see that beautiful spirit of his. I was never able to talk to anybody because it just wasn't encouraged for any of us in high school.
Yeah, and this is what happens, is years later it's still on your mind, isn't it? You've never forgotten that person. And this is what happens when we keep everything inside. We feel as though we're alone. We feel as though there's nobody else going through what we're going through. And that is one of the warning signs of a potential suicide, is that feeling of isolation, that feeling of hopelessness. Nobody gets it. Nobody understands. And that is one of the key warning signs that you do need to look out for, which is why it's so important, number one, that we're talking to our teenagers, and number two, that we're making it normal for them to say, I've been thinking about it, and I do think I want to take you up on that offer for therapy. They may not agree immediately, but all of us that are parents know that they are listening. It may not seem like they're listening, but they are. And so it's important that you open up that door, because otherwise it is going to feel like they are going through this alone, and we never want them to feel like that's happening.
Absolutely not.
Again, a tough topic, and something that too many students and others are having to deal with right now, and our hearts certainly go out to those in the Seminole County community who are going through this and coping with the loss of friends and fellow students. I want to go ahead and give you another live look right now at the U.S. Senate. This test vote continuing, basically having to do some procedural things before there's an actual vote on any continuing resolution. And to be honest, it actually hasn't even gotten to that point for these votes. These that's why they're essentially called a test vote. It's a procedural kind of thing to move on to those actual votes, but have not really gotten to that point. And that's what requires 60 votes. That's what requires participation from both sides of the aisle, even as Republicans have kind of stood united. There have been a few Democrats who have broken ranks, but the government shutdown, as you see there, entering day 16. And we're continuing to monitor this ongoing vote. A lot of activity right now. You see a number of senators speaking on the floor, speaking with each other. So we'll give you an update as we get it from the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Oh, welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday morning, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. We are coming up on the holiday season, very quickly approaching, and we've got an eye on some fun events coming up at theme parks and other attractions and places to check out here in Central Florida. And so joining us live now to talk about them, let us know what we can expect, is Theron White, the lead publisher of EYNTK.info. Theron, always good talking with you. Thanks for joining us this morning.
Happy to join. Nothing says let's talk Christmas like being 2 weeks away from Halloween and feeling like we're going into fall, but here we are.
Exactly. Well, the seasons here are already kind of messed up anyway, and then when you throw in the theme parks having to get an early start on everything, so yeah, let's look ahead a little bit to Christmas. But let's talk about Dazzling Nights that's coming to Lou Gardens soon, and this just looks like an incredible event.
Absolutely. This is an event that's been going on for years, and they're coming back once again, and it is an absolute fan favorite. Now, to be honest, I myself have not gone yet. I am going to be going this year, but everyone I know that has gone to this event has said it is just stunning. You've got over a mile along walking path of different holiday lights. This year they have a new holiday village, which is going to sell some food items. They've got some drink items there as well. But their thing that they're most famous for that I've heard about every single year is their 80-foot long, it's called the Cathedral of Lights. It's an homage to stained glass from churches all around the world. But I mean, you can see on these videos here, I mean, it's very, very pretty. The tickets are about $30. And you can go and take the family, walk through to a nighttime experience and kind of just see the gardens, which are already very pretty, but see them lit up at night. And I'm very excited to attend this year.
Yeah, I mean, Lou Gardens is a cool place anyway, beautiful place to explore and just kind of wander around a little bit. And so, you know, I haven't been to Dazzling Nights either, but it looks like a great time, and you know, one of those things where you're walking through, you can go at your own pace. It looks like it's a perfect event for families.
Yeah, it's very large, and they've even talked about how there's different areas and sections that you can go. So there's something like a modern section where you can go snowball fighting with elves, or you can listen to live music. They've got a 50-foot tall illuminated star. So like you said, you can kind of walk at your own pace, go with your family, and I'm sure take a lot of photos if you're kind of looking for maybe that new Christmas photo to have. That's a good thing about going early before Christmas, is it can make it in time for the cards, perhaps.
Yeah, and starting just in time, right around Thanksgiving. So if anyone's in town, if you have any visitors in town for that holiday as well, good time to get a jump on things.
Exactly.
Let's also talk now about Illuminate at Aquatica, because this is another really cool event that's coming up, and to kind of keep with the lights theme.
Yes, this was actually just announced this morning. It's going to be happening at Aquatica Orlando, the SeaWorld Orlando water park. This is going to be an after-hours event that's going to go from 6 p.m. till 10 p.m. Now, just because it's at the water park doesn't mean that it's going to be a water park experience. You don't need to bring a bathing suit. Because we're going to be going into some of these colder months of Florida, colder of course, but at least at night, you know, when the sun is down, from November 6th to January 31st, on select nights, you can go to the park and they're going to do this lantern experience. There's a total of 5 different realms. Guests are going to be able to walk through the park and kind of explore these areas. We've given a little bit of a look here, as you can see, with one of the lanterns, but they said there's going to be a whole area dedicated to them. So you'll be able to go around through the park, see these, get some photos, meet a tropical Santa, as well as being able to get some limited time food and drink offerings. And then a miniature train is going to go through a Serengeti of lantern animals. So I'm excited to see what this is going to be. They've already had some very popular summertime events at this park. And so now we get to see kind of a Christmas inspired version.
And you talked about the 5 realms that are there to explore, some all with kind of different things to offer.
Yeah, so they've got the 5 different ones. There's Aqualuma, which is going to have its 5 glowing animal gardens. There's the Candy Cascade Falls with gigantic gummy bears. The Enchanted Lagoon with a luminous mermaid. The Mist Wood Waters with the Great Tree of Light. And then the Rivers of Discovery, which is going to have animal tributes, which is related to SeaWorld, Discovery Cove, and Busch Gardens, Tampa Bay. So it looks like it's going to be a great spot to be able to walk around. The tickets are going to start at $30. And then if you're a pass holder, supposedly they're going to have some discounts for that as well. But that'll be another great option if something you want to walk around and explore something for Christmas. And again, you don't need your bathing suit. Just because it's going to be late night in December, you don't have to be cold. Go there and enjoy kind of a Christmas experience at Aquatica in Orlando.
Yeah, you probably don't want to show up in your swimsuit.
Not.
So that's a good word of advice there. And Theron, while we're looking ahead to Christmas and the holidays, Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party coming up, and also getting a first look at some of the merch for that.
Yeah, Disney has revealed some of this merch that you'll be able to go and grab. That event is going to be happening November 7th through December 21st. For anyone that doesn't know, they do these nighttime events, but they actually end at the week of Christmas. So if you visit Disney with all the crowds during that week, you're going to be able to go and get some of those experiences for free. Disney also confirmed that as of November 3rd, the Jingle Cruise is going to be returning. That is the Jungle Cruise, but the Christmas-inspired version. You don't need to go to Mickey's Very Merry Christmas Party to experience that. Anyone that goes to Magic Kingdom as of November 3rd and moving forward is going to be able to do that. So we got to look at some new merch. They know that that event is going to be coming up. And of course, the confirmation of the Jingle Cruise, which is a fan favorite for Christmas. I love when rides do holiday overlays or overlay for really any season. So I'm really happy to see this is returning.
Yeah, for those who may not be familiar with the Jingle Cruise, I did it for my first time last Christmas time. What's different about it? What makes it special?
So it's going to be the same ride path. You're still going to be able to go on the Jungle Cruise just like you normally do. But now some of the animals are going to be wearing some holiday-inspired decorations. They're going to have on some costumes. They add a couple of Christmas-related jokes. They've got a little bit of singing and some stuff like that. And then they've got some Christmas presents that are like floating in the water. So if you love the Jungle Cruise, it's a similar style experience, but they tweak it a little bit with the decorations and the jokes, kind of just to fit the holiday season.
Yeah, the holidays at the theme parks, we know it's a big draw for folks here and out-of-towners coming in to experience all of this. And I think you and I have talked before, Theron, about just the atmosphere there around Christmas time. It's fun, it's festive, and there's a lot to take in.
Absolutely. All of the theme parks, whether or not you do an after-hours event or you just visit the park normally during those days, they do a ton for the decorations. And I do love that Orlando is so dedicated to both Halloween and Christmas. It really does change drastically from October 31st to like the very next week, November 7th, usually is when they're done switching it over. The parks have totally transformed, and seeing them from the daytime and the nighttime with those decorations and all the extra flair. Whether or not you're spending extra money to go to a special after events like experience, you're going to see a lot of change. And I do love Christmas for our holiday, snow or anything.
You're talking about that changeover. I am sure that keeps the cast members very busy.
That it does, definitely, yes. I mean, there is a lot of work that has to happen all the time for that. Disney sometimes throughout the past has talked and shown sort of like what it takes to transform the parks. The stuff that they do overnight to go from Halloween to Christmas is almost miraculous how much work they have going on. So all of the parks here in Central Florida do quite a lot. And not just that, our local attractions do a lot of stuff as well. So if you're already getting in the Christmas season, if you're done with Halloween, you got a lot coming up.
All right, that's some things to look forward to there. And like we were saying, not just the theme parks, some other places like Lou Gardens, a lot of exciting stuff to look forward to this holiday season. Well, Theron White, lead publisher of EYNTK.info, we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Always happy to join.
We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Garrett Wymer here, and I want to give you a live look at the floor of the U.S. Senate, where a vote that a test vote to end the shutdown has ended and failed for the 10th time now, as the stalemate between Senate and House Republicans and Democrats continues on Capitol Hill, day 16 of the government shutdown. Again, this was a largely party line vote, as it has been for most of the time. Needed 60 votes to kind of move things forward and actually spur on a vote for the actual continuing resolution. So things right now remain as they have been. The federal government continuing to be shut down. We will also continue to monitor things for any updates and any more news conferences from Senate and House leaders today. Again, coming up in just a little bit, we will hear from Mike Johnson. I'll make sure you hear his remarks from just a little bit ago. But we want to talk a little sports right now. And the Miami Dolphins, it has been a tough season for all you Fins fans. They are 1-5 heading into a matchup against a Cleveland Browns team that they really should beat. The Browns also having a disappointing season. Dolphins quarterback Tua Tagovailoa publicly criticized the team's leadership earlier this week. Some players showing up late, skipping players-only meetings. So a lot really going on, it seems like, not just on the field for the Dolphins, but also inside the clubhouse. And ESPN says, get this, Miami's playoff odds right now, they sit at just 2%. And there's a lot of speculation about the future of Mike McDaniel, whether he is on the hot seat, if the Dolphins might end the season with a new head coach. How hot is that hot seat? Mike McDaniel, the Dolphins head coach right now, spoke to reporters ahead of this matchup against the Browns, and here's some of what he said.
So in the NFL and the NBA, the coaches are usually the public face of the franchise, and you get them rather than the GM. So forgive me for asking you a question. It's probably better suited for Chris, but since you're the only one here. So when it became clear after a couple weeks that you all could not that you all could not stop the run and didn't have enough from a defensive line standpoint, why did the organization decide not to try, correct me if I'm wrong, try not to get upgrades on the defensive line, whether it was via trade like the Chargers did for an edge rusher last week, whether it was bringing in Wilkins to see how his foot is? Why did you not try something before you got this below 500 to try to address that need? I was confused about that.
Because frankly, you're first and foremost, if your first viewing or your first quarter of the season or your first game, or if we took the results of that game and mandated that was an absolute, that the players that did whatever they did that day, that's who they are forever, that we'd probably miss out on a lot of major players in this league as you grow as a young player. So what you're doing is you're taking a snapshot of what that was, conceivably, what can you coach and improve with the player. Is there things that they are unable to do through coaching, and then you match that versus what's available to you. So when you don't, just because you're not active doesn't mean by any stretch that you're complacent. The easiest answer is grass is greener, but you have to really focus on all right, well, what are they able to do? What are they doing? How can we adjust? And with the thought of their best stuff is better than what we extrapolate is available, and so it's our job to try to get them to do their best stuff, and it improves. Like I told you, the run defense wasn't exclusively at one position, and specifically with the it's the bigger gains that have really ate up the clock, gotten first downs, and that has to do with all three levels. When those occur, we had less, which is less than we did the week before, and that was absolute the sole focus. I saw the real growth in the unit on the most clips that I've seen thus far this year. So you're making sure that there's that the really performance improves, whether that's the same nameplate or someone different.
How fair is it to say that the on and off field absence of Calais Campbell has been significant?
How fair? Yeah, he's a very good player that provides a lot of things, and you know there's each team is unique to their own. I have a lot of positive things to say about him, but to just say that things are this or that. However, he's a good player, and I'd like to have him on our team.
As players have come back for the week of practice, do you still see Tua's comments as an internal topic, or did he address it with teammates and everyone's kind of set it behind them now?
Yeah, that's the first, last, and only thing, if I have anything to say about it, and I did in several meetings today, is the Cleveland Browns and our focus within that regard. Absolutely, he communicated with his teammates both in group and individually, and there's much bigger fish to fry in our team's opinion, in my opinion.
So that was earlier today, or?
There was Monday, and I know he's talked to some of the guys that he didn't catch, on Monday today. But I think we have plenty to occupy our minds with our football play versus what will be a motivated Cleveland Browns team on the road.
Mike, is left guard an open competition, or do you want to continue to invest in Jonah as a starter because you see the talent there?
Well, I think Jonah had I'm sure you guys noticed the play that he would want back. Outside of that, I think he had probably his best technique game. He's it's very fluid. The NFL and teams are made up of a coach-player relationship that there needs to be a purpose for the coach to exist, and that's to improve the player. And players, by nature of the experience or the relationship with the coach, are challenged to improve, and that process needs to occur, or you evaluate other options. That's just the nature of all of it. So it is of primary importance that our best coaching is done through improvement of failure, and that the idea isn't black and white where you high five, result good, no eye contact, result bad type stuff. Like this is we're working together to achieve the best result, and that takes investment and mutual ownership.
Mike, you've got a 29-28 regular season record as Dolphins coach. I'm wondering how you view the Mike McDaniel era of Dolphins football to this point.
Whoa, I'm not in the mindset of reviewing eras. I don't think my job title lends anybody to benefit by me sitting back and reflecting upon. I have problems to solve. My job is a problem solver, quite literally, and bringing there's new issues to address and attack, and I'm very much focused on you know, you don't control necessarily the circumstance or situation entirely on your own ever in life. I'm trying to be the very best head coach for this team, who you know needs their coach to be focused on the stuff that they actually can contribute of value to them, which is preparation, conviction, detail on their craft, and you know, ability to communicate how all individual pieces connect to one. And that's so I don't mean to not have something good to say. Quite literally, I would just be talking. I'm focused on trying to win a game versus the Browns.
Mike, you know how Jalen Phillips can be pretty critical of his own play, and he obviously had the play at the end of the game the other day. How do you see him responding from that? What signs?
Well, I think he's hiding in plain sight. You know, I get to see the maturity of a player, live speed, or a player that, you know, hasn't always. Sometimes you can be your own worst enemy when you really want to do well, and then something doesn't. Then you don't. You can make your play worse, and that's something that more often than not, players in this league have to figure out how to continually take critiques and adjustments in their game and stay confident and press forward. What I've seen from his response, you know, I would worry about maybe the first year I was with him, potentially not being able to understand that both things can be true. He's absolutely capable and wishes that he made a play at the end of the game, but understanding that games are an accumulation of various situations, that he can't look at it like he lost the game, and then at the same time ignore the fact that his pursuit kept on, I think, the second drive, kept the offensive player to only 3 yards, forced a 2nd and 7, which resulted in a takeaway, which resulted in the next play being a touchdown. So everybody's play is interconnected. You got to continue to get better and be hard on yourself with good reason and productivity. And I think he's understood how capable and how to address stuff moving forward without making himself worse by the delusion of that play being the only play that existed in a game of 159 plays.
Myles, Garrett, how do you balance the idea as you go through your game planning and getting ready for, you know, what you're going to do on Sunday? How do you balance the idea of letting a Patrick Paul, for instance, just take him one-on-one versus committing a bunch of help to a player that's so dominant in this league?
Well, I think that's part of the challenge of this particular defense and why they're playing so well, because if you overcommit to one player, you leave yourself extremely vulnerable to the other players not focused on, and this group has a plethora of really, really good defensive linemen. So you have to balance it. You have to understand that it's no single person's job when you're talking about one of the best players in the league at any position, and that it may take it may take a receiver adding an extra bump to his pass rush or a chip to help Pat block him, or it may take the appropriate receiver route and quarterback timing to block him, and to beat his pass rush by timing, or it may take a turn, or it may take we may account on one play 3 guys on him. and but you do that in a collection of plays over the course of the game, and it's never one person's responsibility. You prioritize him in the game plan and focus on him for sure, while spreading the duty of trying to contain an elite player across a group and not an individual.
Has T-Dot cleared concussion protocol?
I've heard, I don't think officially yet, but I think it's, I think I haven't heard anything that would have me be skeptical of whether or not that will occur. So no bad news on that front.
Patrick Paul versus Myles Garrett might be an interesting matchup.
Yeah.
How do you think he's doing, and how do you think he might approach that one?
See if you guys are listening. He's the only person that's going to block Myles Garrett this game. Okay. All right. So you guys are listening. I think as competitors, you want players on your team that look for the competitive challenge of attacking some of the league's best. I think it will be probably the second time that Patrick's blocked him. He was able to play against him last year, and knows all the problems that he can present. So it's a good challenge for Patrick. That again is not his and only his. You spread that over a unit when you're dealing with a player of that magnitude.
Become a high volume player. Well, going back to last year in terms of receptions,
Mm-hmm.
with Tyreek out, you're utilizing him more with I don't know if you call them gadget plays, but plays designed for that were designed for Tyreek. What is the pros and cons of that in terms of teams game planning for him, and then maybe getting him out the backfield?
So that's a great question, because you have to be, for me, to be responsible with that usage, you have to be very proactive and utilizing all of your time with the player. For what do I mean by that? With Devon, it's why the spring and the summer, OTAs and training camp are so important, because you can kind of work into the teaching progression some of the things that you may or may not use during the course of the year. One of the things we did this off season was try to take advantage of some of his skill set as a receiver and an actual route runner. And so during the season, it's all good unless he gets worse at his tracks or running the football. That vulnerability, I've had experience of various players that had multi-functions. So you in planning, you get ahead of it and teach them the core principles of that position, so that in game plans, you're not trying to start from scratch, which is an opportunity cost that even if you get, let's say you want to teach him a completely unique route, there's a cost in that, in terms of you're going to have to spend time and focus and energy on that. That means he better be on top of all of his other responsibilities in his game. So I think that, both, planning from our perspective, but then his commitment to the nuances of the position over the entirety of the off season allow him to feature various aspects of his skill set that are unique and help us with advantages over opponents.
If I may, have you ever had a player comparable to Devon before?
No, it's similar problem solving, reverse engineered as Debo. Debo's a receiver that you had to, so then you kind of use that format inverse for the receiver. That's the only person I can really think of that we were putting in the backfield, and being a receiver, he was just the opposite starting point.
We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. Again, want to give you a live look at the floor of the U.S. Senate right now. Several senators have kind of been milling about. In fact, I might see Senator Ashley Moody there speaking on the floor. It's kind of hard to tell because our view is a little bit pixelated and zoomed out. But a number of senators on the floor, a test vote to end the shutdown failed for the 10th time, and the government shut down now on day 16. Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us. Just a little bit ago, we heard from House Speaker Mike Johnson, who spoke with the Republican leadership at a news conference, as he has for much of the past couple of weeks, as this has stretched on, speaking about the shutdown, what they're calling on Democrats to do, answering questions from reporters as well. I want to play for you that full news conference from just a little bit ago on Capitol Hill.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to day 16 of the Democrat shutdown. The Schumer shutdown is very real and very painful for real Americans. We're going to share a little bit about that situation with you this morning, and then get an update on one specific segment regarding Homeland Security and what that's doing for the security of our country. If you're keeping count, 9 times now, 9 times the Senate Democrats have voted to keep the government closed. All the House Democrats except one voted September 19th to shut it down. So this is 10 total times now that Democrats in Congress have voted to close the government. And we know what that means for real people. We know what it means for our troops and our Border Patrol agents and TSA agents and air traffic controllers and everybody who relies upon services around the country. It's very real. And so today marks yet another day of American families feeling the very real personal and economic strain of this reckless decision that our Democrat colleagues keep making. They want the United States government to remain closed, and they seem not to care about the pain that it's causing. They have offered no plan. They have offered no strategy. They have offered no common sense path forward for ending this situation. And so many of you have asked all of us, how will it end? We have no idea. It's up to the Democrats, and they have to decide it. And judging by their outrageous behavior, the Democrats appear perfectly happy to keep the political theater going while real people suffer. And that's why House Republicans made the responsible decision for our members to spend this week in their districts working for the people. They're helping their constituents. They're helping the American people navigate the mess that the Democrats have created. Staying back to work with our constituents was a decision that we made very thoughtfully, and we made collectively as a group, House Republicans. We have so much of that work to do. That's not some talking point. It's not some strategic tactic. We made that decision out of urgent necessity. So I want to highlight here just this morning, just very briefly, just a couple of examples, a small sample of some of the very important work that House Republicans are doing on the ground right now to help Americans through this difficult time. In the state of Michigan, for example, our members are sitting down with veterans, men and women who risked their lives for our country, and they're struggling now because the services they depend on, health services, for example, have come to a halt thanks to the Schumer shutdown. So in Michigan, our Republicans from the House are there working through those situations. In Texas, many of our Republican colleagues have met with some of our brave Border Patrol agents down on that southern border who are still reporting for duty without a paycheck. In Montana, Congressman Ryan Zinke helped park rangers who are keeping the parks open as best they can for families and travelers, even as they themselves go without a paycheck. Across the Midwest, we have members who are meeting with local and regional airports to hear firsthand how furloughs and blocked paychecks there are hurting the people who keep our skies safe. Really important stuff. In rural communities around the country, Republicans are working hand in hand with their local hospitals to make sure that the $50 billion rural hospital fund that Republicans got signed into law in July 4th is accessed. It reaches the people who need it. And they're doing that work while the Democrats are demanding to kill that essential fund that is in their counterproposal for the CR, one of the many outrageous things they've claimed they want to do. And everywhere across America right now, we're helping small business owners and farmers and ranchers and service coordinators navigate frozen loans and delayed emergency funds and growing uncertainty about how to keep serving their communities. So all across the country, Republicans are dealing with the very real and painful consequences facing real Americans. Now, that's happening on the Republican side. And what's happening on the Democrat side? You can see it for yourself. Compare what I just told you with what they're doing. Look at their own behavior. Look at their actions. Don't listen to the words that people are saying. Look at what they're doing. Chuck Schumer and Democrats over the last 10 days, here's a small sample of their activity, okay? We've seen performative stunts and TikToks and photo shoots across every inch of this Capitol. We've seen Democrats actually toast themselves on the balcony of the DCCC last night, while their colleagues voted in the Senate to keep the government closed for the 10th time. We've seen not one but two failed publicity stunts right outside my own office, the latest of which ended in a congresswoman storming the entrance and berating a Capitol police officer who, by the way, is protecting her without pay. And last night, we even saw, I didn't see it, many of you saw it, CNN host the first socialist town hall where Bernie Sanders and AOC said the quiet parts out loud. They don't know what they want to end this shutdown. They couldn't provide a single viable solution for the mess that they themselves have gleefully created. And by the way, those are the real leaders of the Democrat Party. We all know it, AOC and Bernie. Good luck with that. And amid all that, Chuck Schumer is actually bragging that every day gets better for his party. As you know, that is his words, not ours. All this would be laughable if it didn't come at the cost of American families, and it really is deadly serious. If it were up to Republicans alone, we would not be in this mess. We'd be up here negotiating and debating openly and transparently on the issues impacting Americans' lives. But as I've said repeatedly, Democrats slammed the brakes on legislative business when they decided to shut down the government for their partisan political purposes. The progress we made on appropriations and the conversations that were underway on the COVID-era Obamacare subsidies and all those issues, all that sits at a standstill until Democrats reopen the government. As soon as 5 Senate Democrats come to their senses and break ranks and turn the lights back on, House Republicans are anxious to get back to legislative session and to pick up our unfinished business. We have a lot yet to do. Until then, I'll continue to share the facts from this podium every morning to try to get this message directly to the American people. Republicans will continue serving on the job in our communities on behalf of the American people that we represent. I'm going to conclude this morning by saying this again. There's an incredible contrast right now between the two parties that could not be more clear. As we say here every day, this is not your grandfather's Democratic Party. It truly has become the far left, Marxist left, that are running that whole operation. And it has real effects on real people. And I just want you to, I'll highlight again the split screen of what we're seeing. In America right now, there are two diametrically opposed visions for the country, and you should look at the actions of elected officials and not their words. And what are the actions? President Trump and Republicans are delivering for the American people. We have cut their taxes. We are removing red tape and regulations to get the economy humming again. We have ended the border crisis, virtually 0 crossings in the last 4 months under President Trump. We are ending the crime crisis around America, taking heroic measures to make sure that happens. We're cutting fraud, waste, and abuse out of government and making government more efficient and effective for the people. And right now, President Trump is resolving international conflicts, restoring peace through strength around the globe. That's just a small sampling of what's been done by Republicans in the last 9 months. And what have Democrats done the last 9 months? On the split screen, look at the other side. They've shut down the government. I mean, I don't know what else to say. Put all the gimmicks and the talking points aside and look at the indisputable facts and evidence of what is happening right here. There could not be a stronger contrast between the two parties. And I don't know how more simply we can say that. With all that, I'm really happy to introduce our good friend from New York. Chairman Andrew Garbarino is the chair of our House Committee on Homeland Security, and he's here with us this morning to tell us a little bit more about the grave consequences of the Democrat shutdown on America's national security. It could not be more serious than it is right now. Andrew, go ahead.
Thank you, Speaker.
Sure.
Thank you, Speaker, and Leader Scalise and Chairman McClain. Thank you all for being here today. The Senate Democrats' decision to shut down this government for cheap political points lacks any common sense and is undermining the Department of Homeland Security's core mission, as well as the people tasked with upholding it. Nearly 95% of DHS's workforce is considered essential, and that's rightfully so. But that means they're at work right now and they're not getting paid. More than 63,000 CBP personnel, including U.S. Border Patrol, are continuing their steadfast commitment to securing our borders. More than 61,000 TSA personnel are continuing their mission to protect the traveling public and keep the skies safe. More than 8,000 Secret Service personnel are still carrying out their no-fail mission to safeguard our nation's leaders. More than 49,000 U.S. Coast Guard personnel are serving to protect our maritime borders. I'm grateful that President Trump and Secretary Noem are taking steps to ensure that the Coast Guard personnel are getting paid, just like our military during the shutdown. And I appreciate the department's continued work to support frontline law enforcement officers. I think, though, it's also very vital that we ensure that TSA security officers are compensated as well. Just because the government shut down doesn't mean people aren't still flying. We owe all of these men and women at DHS a debt of gratitude for their continued service. But the shutdown is not just about personnel. It's undercutting our homeland security posture. A lapse in government funding prevents DHS from moving forward with critical new investments that enable us to stay ahead of rapidly evolving threats. New contracts are put on hold, and proactive engagements with security partners are postponed. Shutdowns also disrupt the disbursement of vital grants from the Homeland Security Department to our state and local law enforcement partners. This undermines preparedness efforts and makes our communities less safe. Voting against the CR also, the Democrats have allowed crucial DHS authorities to expire. One of those is the Cybersecurity Information Sharing Act of 2015. Without that, 90% of our critical infrastructure is owned by private companies. They can't communicate with us right now. They can't tell us when there's a cyber attack because this lapsed. Every second we go without the ability for them to share that information makes us less safe. They've also the Counter Drone Authority has also lapsed. That was in the CR. Without this in place, agencies may not be able to swiftly take down malicious drones before they threaten U.S. airspace. There are dozens more. In short, this shutdown is making our country less safe. And I implore Senate Democrats to do the right thing and reopen the government now. With that, I would like to bring up Leader Scalise.
Thank you. Well, you just heard a very stark, grim reality from Chairman Garbarino of what Chuck Schumer's shutdown is doing to our nation's ability to protect the homeland. The Department of Homeland Security is one of the most critical in terms of our ability to keep Americans safe here at home. And they're doing incredible work. And, you know, fortunately, like Chairman Garbarino said, 95% of the employees are deemed essential, but they're on the job not getting paid. But beyond that, he also pointed out grants are not going out. The sharing of information on things like cybersecurity is not happening. These are real devastating consequences of Chuck Schumer's shutdown. And nobody on the Democrat side can still articulate the reason why they're doing it beyond the obvious. And the obvious reason is Chuck Schumer being scared for his political future. Scared from who? From AOC. And last night, as the speaker mentioned, we saw two of the Democrat Party leaders, Bernie Sanders and AOC, at a forum, town hall, whatever you want to call it, on CNN. And they were laughing, they were guffawing like it's some kind of game. In fact, when AOC was pressed to say, what is it that y'all are shutting the government down over? She couldn't even give an articulate answer. This is what she said, quote, "I think we need to see ink on paper. I think we need to see legislation. And I think we need to see these things passed on the floor of the House and Senate and signed by the president." Can anybody tell me what she's talking about? I mean, they filed an alternative bill that everybody knows is not serious, $1.5 trillion in new spending to do, among other things, to gut the rural hospital fund, the $50 billion that we put in place, the largest investment in rural hospitals in our country's history. They want to gut that to give free health care to illegals. That's not going to happen, and that's not a serious proposal. But in fact, when you get back to the heart of the question, and that is Chuck Schumer fighting for his political life in New York, they did ask AOC that question. You know, are you going to primary Chuck Schumer? And she laughed, and Bernie tried to bail her out of the question, but ultimately she wouldn't give a direct response to that, because that's really what this shutdown is about. Is Chuck Schumer afraid of the AOC wing of the party primarying and beating him in New York. And so he's just concerned about his political future, and he's willing to jeopardize the lives of the American people, to jeopardize our homeland security abilities that Chairman Garbarino talked about. These are serious consequences to real people, men and women in uniform, our federal workers that are not getting paid. All for what? For the gibberish you heard last night? They cannot articulate even what they want. We presented a clean CR that Chuck Schumer himself voted for in March. Very straightforward bill to fund the government and open it up just to give us more time to negotiate our differences. Very big differences that we have on policy, but we can't even get to those policy negotiations while Chuck Schumer is shutting down the government. So Senator Thune's doing a great job of trying to find a way to keep bringing the bills back up until one day just 5 more senators on the Democrat side come to their senses and say they're willing to get the government back open so we can resume those negotiations. And we stand ready. We've done our job in the House, and we're ready to get back to work. There's a lot of work stacking up, but while Chuck Schumer keeps the government shut down, it's hurting millions of real families across America. With that, turn it over to our conference chair, Lisa McClain.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you, Rep. Garbarino, for being here and the work that you're doing on the Homeland Security. Here we are. Democrats have shut down your government now for 16 days. So I think we all want to know, what have the Democrats done with all this time on their hands, right? Well, let's see. They've posed for glossy photos outside the Capitol. They've screamed at Capitol police officers who, by the way, they are refusing to pay, right? They've jumped on TV to what looks like an audition to be the next radical in charge after Chuck Schumer. And now they're gearing up for their I Hate America rally this weekend. A rally where they'll cheer for chaos instead of country. So take note of what goes on at that rally. Take note of how they put Americans first, really. Now, let's contrast that with Republicans who are doing what we always do, and that is actually working for the American people. And let me give you some examples, and I know our speaker talked about this, but I think this bears repeating again. Pat Fallon, who was in Texas hosting a town hall. Congressman LaLota connected with more than 8,000 of his constituents in New York doing a teletown hall. Congressman Collins held mobile office hours in Georgia. Congressman Walberg in my home state of Michigan brought veterans together in Michigan to tackle problems right now with the VA. Congressman Zinke actually rolled up his sleeves, I mean literally rolled up his sleeves in Montana to help Yellowstone National Park to clean it up. That's the difference. One side delivers solutions and the other are showboats. Republicans passed a clean CR to keep the government open. No gimmicks, no tricks. We actually want to govern. We did our job. And then we got back to work for the people who actually sent us here. Democrats, they saw a shutdown as leverage, as a chance to push for more wasteful spending. And don't take my word for it. Look at what they want to do, $1.5 trillion. You should never use a shutdown as leverage for more wasteful spending. But that's exactly what the Democrats are doing. Well, I have news for them. It's not going to work. Republicans are united behind the work that we've done for the American people. We will not hand out government benefits to illegals on your dime. We will not repeal provisions that cut waste, fraud, and abuse. And we will not cave to Democrats' $1.5 trillion in spending. So it's time for the Democrats to wrap up the photo shoots, stop actually attacking law enforcement, and end the who's more radical contest. Let's pass our clean bill and get back to work for the American people who sent us here. Thank you.
All right, time for questions. Chad, go ahead. Good morning.
I know what Republicans have said, saying the shutdown is because Schumer is afraid of Ocasio-Cortez. There have been questions to Ocasio-Cortez, Schumer, saying, is this because you're afraid? Are you going to challenge in a primary? They deny that. I understand the tension here about the shutdown. But just because you're saying that that's the case does not necessarily make that true. When they deny that, why should we continue to say, okay, it's because they're worried about their left flank, or Schumer's worried about Ocasio-Cortez challenging him in a primary?
Well, look, I'll be intellectually consistent, tell you don't listen to what politicians say, look at the actual evidence. I can put on my evidence here. First, Exhibit A is what AOC actually said last night. She did not disclaim that she was running against Schumer, and there's a lot to talk about that. You don't have to take my word for it. Most of you have written about that. But then also look at the evidence. Exhibit B would be what happened in March. And when we began all this, and I think at the first or second day of the shutdown, I brought you a magazine cover that I had on a big stack on my desk, the Washington Examiner, and it was a cartoon depiction of Chuck Schumer leaving the Senate with a box with all his belongings as if he'd been fired, and he had this shameful look on his face. And all the House Democrats were drawn behind him, screaming at him, holding up signs saying he was a traitor, etc. And that's the abuse he took from the far left corners of the base after he did the right and responsible thing, by his own words, not mine, the right and responsible thing to pass the continuing resolution in March. We have the identical product on the table today. What has changed? Don't take our word for it. Just go look. The only explanation for this is that Chuck Schumer does not want to face the heat and the scrutiny and the abuse that he took in March for doing the right, responsible thing by the far left voices in his party. When Bernie and AOC get the full stage for a CNN, the first socialist town hall, I hope they're proud of themselves. They are the voices of the party. I mean, they are. Look, Mamdani is on path, shockingly, sadly, frighteningly, to become the elected mayor of the largest city in America, the once cradle of capitalism. There is a Marxist rise within the Democratic Party, and the old guard, and I'm saying old guard, Chuck Schumer's been here for 44 years, okay? He is not the flavor of the month. And he knows that he's going to get a challenge. If it's not AOC, it'll be another disciple of Mamdani or somebody like that. They all know that. Ask Hakeem Jeffries why he has not openly endorsed Mamdani for the mayor of New York. He's in a real bind because Hakeem Jeffries, while he's a far left progressive politician, he's not a communist. But you have to aspire, you have to say, you have to stand for the farthest left ideas, socialism, communism, Marxism right now, to be in favor in the Democratic Party. This is not your grandfather's Democratic Party. They wouldn't recognize it. And that's the dynamic that Chuck Schumer is dealing with, and that's why he's drawn the line right here. He had to show a fight, and everybody knows it. It is plainly on display. Yes.
Are you worried about that extremist pro-Hitler sentiment among the party's young Republicans?
No, look, obviously we roundly condemn any of that nonsense, and the Young Republican or the organization, whoever that, I don't know who any of these people are, I never heard of them. Somebody posted a photo of me standing next to these guys. We were in tuxedos. Obviously, I think it was at the inauguration, and people were just coming up and asking for selfies with 1,000 of them. I don't know. I've never heard of that person in my life. But whoever these young people are, and whatever they're saying, if it's true, we obviously condemn that. And the organizations involved are dealing with that. That's my understanding. With regard to the swastika thing, this happened last night. A Republican congressman, allegedly one of his staffers had something in the background or something in a Zoom. That's what I heard this morning. He says that that's not his, and there's a proper investigation ongoing, and the congressman did exactly what he should have done, and that is report it. It's under investigation, and I can't comment on it any further until that's done, but I will say, obviously, that is not the principles of the Republican Party. We stand for the founding principles of America. You want me to articulate them for you right now? Individual freedom, limited government, the rule of law, peace through strength, fiscal responsibility, free markets, human dignity, the things that lead to human flourishing. We have stood against that. We fought the Nazis. We defended that evil ideology. We roundly condemn it, and anybody in any party who espouses it, we're opposing that. I don't know how else more simply to say that. Yes, sir.
Back on the shutdown, Leader Thune has offered Democrats a vote by the end of the year on Obamacare subsidies. Would you be willing to make the same commitment to sort of ease the shutdown?
Let me tell you what happened yesterday, because I met with Leader Thune, and he offered to Chuck Schumer a vote on Obamacare subsidies, and Schumer said no. that happened. Asked Leader Thune about it because they wanted a guaranteed outcome. Here's why we can't do that. Let me say this very clearly and for everyone again. Okay. The Obamacare subsidy issue is not the issue of today. It is in a subsidy that expires December 31. We were always planning to continue the debate and discussion about that issue in October and November. Ironically, Democrats are taking the time off the clock for us to do that. It's a very complicated, complex matter. There are no income caps on that. By the way, did you know if you're a hardworking taxpayer, middle-class earner, and your family's struggling to put food on the table, did you know that you are subsidizing wealthy people's health care with that subsidy? You probably didn't. Premiums have risen by some estimates 60% since Obamacare was enacted into law in 2010. There's no way to repeal and replace it because it's too deeply ingrained right now. We have to improve it. Republicans are the ones with the ideas to increase access to care, the quality of care, and bring down the cost. Not the Democrats. They're the ones that gave us this problem, and they're the ones that have made it so expensive. Now, we have 535 members between the House and Senate. There's a lot of people in this deliberative body here. That's a very complicated issue. It's not something that 4 people can go into a back room and guarantee an outcome on. It can't be done. It was not possible to be part of the CR, and it is not feasible. It's not appropriate to be on the CR. We require the member-driven consensus process here, and that's what's necessary. So it's not possible for Leader Thune to guarantee to Chuck Schumer some outcome on that because we haven't finished those deliberations. I mean, that's just as simple as it is, and all of you report on the Hill all the time. You know how the process works. So when Leader Thune offered Schumer a vote on the ACA, on the subsidy, without guaranteeing an outcome, Schumer said, nope, no thanks, we'll keep it closed. Because, by the way, remember, every day of the shutdown gets better for us, as Chuck Schumer said, okay? It's not getting better for the American people.
Thank you.
No, I didn't say that. I did not say that, Reed. I said none of us can guarantee an outcome on that. I have said consistently all along, this is part of the deliberative process. We're going to debate and discuss that. And there are debates and discussions going on our side of the aisle and on theirs, but to get everybody together and build that consensus is not possible until we get the government operating again and we stop holding, I get very upset about that. We stop holding the American people hostage for these ridiculous political games. People see what's going on here. We should not have Border Patrol agents not paid right now because Chuck Schumer wants to pay political games to cover his tail. I don't know how much more simply to say that, and every single one of you know that's exactly what's going on. I don't like being mad, Mike. I want to be happy, Mike. I want to be the happy warrior, but I am so upset about this. God bless America. We're done. Thanks.
House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking earlier today at that news conference on Capitol Hill. Day 16 of the government shutdown. Let me give you a live look right now at the floor of the U.S. Senate, where the test vote failed for a 10th time just a little bit ago. We are still monitoring, trying to keep an eye and see if there are going to be any Democrat leadership news conferences this afternoon. Nothing on the schedule at this time, but we're keeping our eyes peeled to see if we hear from Hakeem Jeffries, Chuck Schumer, or anyone else from the leadership of the Democrats, either on the House or the Senate side this afternoon. We're going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we'll be right back with more after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Thursday afternoon, live on Fox Local and on YouTube. A Facebook Marketplace is a popular place to buy things, to find things, to look through things. But there's a word of warning when it comes to buying some larger items and some big ticket items from that platform. The BBB, the Better Business Bureau, says they're seeing some scam trends that are concerning to them. President and CEO of the BBB serving Central Florida, Holly Sammons, stopped by our streaming studio here earlier today to talk with us about what to watch for. Holly, Facebook Marketplace can be a great tool, but there are some things that folks really need to watch out for, and I think that's something we're seeing more and more now.
Yeah, it can be a really convenient way to, find what you're looking for, or, get a great deal. But also we know that scammers are now taking advantage of folks, and especially kind of boats and now even farm equipment. And this stuff is tens of thousands of dollars. So these are huge losses for consumers.
So what are some things that people need to watch out for? Because now that, we're not just talking about entertainment centers and, TVs anymore. Right. Those are big investments. Sure. that people really have to be careful about.
Yeah, that's right. And, if you're looking for a couch, if you're looking for, a pair of shoes, those are things that you expect to be able to go to someone's home or meet them in the community and take a look at and purchase and pick up and take it home. But as far as a vehicle or a boat or a piece of large farm equipment, a lot of people are finding these what looks to be an opportunity, and it's a really great deal. Maybe the person is in another state, but they're willing to bring it down or they're willing to ship it down. Facebook Marketplace tends to be right now, what we're seeing is that this is how they're finding their victims, and they're not local. They make it appear that they're just close enough, but you need to go ahead and take advantage of this now. Send us a deposit, or go ahead and wire us the money, or through a payment app, send us the money, and we'll get this to you. We'll arrange for transport, but the vehicle never comes, and this is a lot of money at stake.
Is there a safe way to make a big purchase like that on Facebook Marketplace, or do you kind of recommend against that for these big ticket items?
Yeah, I think, I don't want to speak for law enforcement, but when it comes to, walking around and meeting strangers with thousands of dollars, safety is obviously also a concern, no matter what the item is, no matter if it's a vehicle or, a diamond ring or whatever. So make sure you take into consideration your own safety. But also, if you're considering making a purchase like a boat or a vehicle, farm equipment, something big like this, just consider, how much money do I have to spend? Do I have that money to risk? And if I lose that money, do I have, can I replace it? Am I going to be out the money I need to buy another car? It's a lot of money to risk. So if you're thinking about buying a really big ticket item, and let's say it's, a few hours drive away, or maybe even it would require a plane ticket, in the end, you may be better off going and laying your eyes on it and then completing the purchase, rather than taking a leap of faith and finding out that it was all for nothing. So, even if they send you pictures, even if they send you VIN number information, just remember that stuff is all really easily, falsified. So laying your eyes on it, meeting this person face to face, or at least dealing with a business that you can verify that their legitimacy, you can verify, are they licensed to sell me this vehicle, stuff like that. It's just so hard to, fact check this transaction from afar. So, a good opportunity might be to go see it for yourself. And if it's too far, but it's not an amount of money that you can afford to risk, maybe don't do it.
I'm glad you bring up some of those, kind of documentation items, because when you're talking about things like that, there are very, specific things that need to be done. Yeah. And you're also talking about something that someone could be selling you something that they don't even own.
For sure, that they don't even have their hands on. They may not even be in the States. If you think about how many people you could reach with this scam sitting behind a computer, you could be selling allegedly this same piece of farm equipment to hundreds of people or thousands of people all across, the country, and the piece of equipment doesn't exist. So, you know, just because they're texting you, just because they're sending you pictures, you know, if they're trying to rush you, if they're saying, you know what, I have a list of other buyers that want to buy this. I don't have time for you to come out here and look at this. I don't have time for you to ask all these questions. Consider that a red flag. If you have questions and they don't have answers, if you want access, if you want to meet them, if you want to see the vehicle for yourself, and they won't allow that, those should be red flags that you don't ignore.
And the other thing is, Holly, is that unlike doing business with a place of business where you could look them up, you can do some research into them, you can check their BBB rating. That's hard to do with something like Facebook Marketplace, so you don't even necessarily know who you're dealing with.
Yeah, and even buying a car from an individual, you know, I mean, many of us have at some point in our life maybe bought a car from an individual, you know, just a consumer-to-consumer transaction. But even in a very legitimate, you know, person-to-person, you know, purchasing a car, there are things you have to do it correctly. There are titles, and you have to make sure that you're handling this correctly with, you know, registration and insurance and things like that. So, you know, if you're an uneducated buyer, and there's no shame in that. Most of us are not car dealers. You know, we're not dealing in farm equipment regularly. You have to make sure that you can trust the person that you're dealing with, or that you yourself have done enough homework and enough research that you feel good about how I'm handling this, how this transaction's going down, am I protecting myself? Is this vehicle, you know, is it legitimate? Am I going to be able to lay my hands on it? You know, was it stolen? Is it real? You know, there's so many questions. And so if you're going into it with someone that you don't know that you can trust, you have to protect yourself, and that starts with asking a lot of questions.
And you mentioned the person-to-person kind of vehicle sales. A lot of times that starts with seeing the vehicle to begin with, you know, driving by it, seeing it, knowing it's there or something like that, checking it out, so you at least know that it exists. When you have that kind of virtual where you're relying on a picture on Facebook Marketplace, who knows? And so what's just, you know, generally when we're talking about something like Facebook Marketplace, what's your word of advice, kind of your bottom line for people when, you know, considering a purchase like this?
I think if you're buying a couch, or if you're buying, you know, a low ticket item, I think it's a pretty low risk transaction. But when you're talking about tens of thousands of dollars or any amount of money that you can't afford to lose, you have to, you know, no pun intended, put yourself in the driver's seat, ask a lot of questions, and insist on doing things the smart way. And that starts with, how can I lay eyes on this vehicle? How can I, you know, have it checked out by a mechanic, things like that. And if you're not allowed that access, then it's a pass.
A lot of good food for thought there from the president and CEO of the BBB. This is Senator Chris Coons, a Democrat from Delaware, speaking live now on the U.S. Senate floor after another test vote to end the government shutdown failed. Let's go ahead and listen in as he speaks live right now in Washington, D.C.
Of many of these bills, well, if that's the intention, we needed communication between our leaders and our caucuses. We have had a positive and productive process in Senate appropriations this year. But the leader's motion to go to the House defense bill was not expected, was not discussed, was not clear to my caucus as to what happens next. So it is with some real regret that I will vote no today, but continue to talk with my colleagues about how do we move forward. I want to take a moment and just speak to the defense bill that we worked so hard on and that came out of the committee with such strong bipartisan support. It would provide a better quality of life to the men and women of the American military and their families. It would invest in total $852 billion in our national defense, expanding shipyards, expanding munition production, creating stockpiles of critical weapons that we know we need for the future, investing in cutting-edge technologies, and rejecting some of the Trump budget cuts to aid to Ukraine, to Taiwan, to our Baltic allies, making positive progress in key areas. Our work together on this bill has generally been a positive experience between senators and our staff. Our challenge was the department. was the secretary and his budgeteers, who often appeared at hearings and meetings without their homework done, without the details ready, without a budget ready to go. Some of you may have forgotten this, but a principal focus of the administration and the majority here during this same time was the so-called Big Beautiful Bill, and trying to put $160 billion onto the Defense Department, not through regular order, not through the usual budget processes, but through this one-time infusion of cash. Senator McConnell and I historically haven't agreed on much, but we certainly agreed on this in hearings and speeches. If we're trying to invest in the future of our armed forces, whether it's new planes, new ships, new systems, or new technology, doing it with one-year money is unwise and unsound. We need to get back to regular order. We need to get back to a reliable and predictable appropriation process. And in order to do that, we need bipartisan agreement that rejects severe cuts, that restores funding for programs like the NIH and CDC, which is done in the bipartisan Labor H bill, the cuts to WIC and rural housing, which is done in the Ag bill, and we need to move these bills forward. The way we move these bills forward is by linking arms and making it clear. We reject rescissions. We want to appropriate beyond just defense. We want a broader package, and to have clarity from our president, the House, and the Senate about how we address the imminent health security crisis that confronts millions of Americans and for today and tomorrow keeps our government shut down. Americans, Mr. President, care about security. We care about security for our families from health care costs, and we care about security for our nation from the threats that are greater than at any time in my adult life. Let's